This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Report, a show made by fans for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and coming at us today is our boy Andrew's going to give us this week's topics.
Well, it looks like we may be getting more Pistons basketball this season, but is it worth it? We'll also bring in the Rocket Mortgage Classic and some movie talk back into the mix. It's a Fan Report.
Okay, well, obviously there's really not much going on in sports. We're starting to get
hasn't been for a while.
No. We're starting to get more and more concerned of whether or not there's even going to be sports returning in this year. We obviously
football is starting to get the NFL is starting to get really worried.
I'll tell you right now, football's a sport. That's the sport I'm least confident that it's going to play.
There's the NFL Players Association is already moving to try to get the preseason canceled entirely.
Right. Well, college football, I'll tell you right now, I don't think plays at all. I don't see how they can do college football as a whole. Maybe
are colleges going to even have kids on campus?
That's the plan right now. Obviously, that's the plan. At least here, that's the plan. I don't see how you can have college football with the way things are going. I mean, you may have individual conferences doing their own thing. I know some conferences have talked about possibly moving the football season to spring and doing that. But I'll be pretty surprised, in all honesty, if we end up having college football this fall, especially just with the way things are kind of progressing. I mean, you look at what's going on down in Florida and Arizona, and it's not pretty. So who knows? Maybe we'll get this thing under control and we will end up getting our sports back, but it's not looking too good right now. I know there was a period of time, just a short couple of weeks ago, that we were like, all right, we're getting some sports back. We're getting baseball. We're getting basketball. Football looks like it's on track. The NFL played through a hurricane, frankly.
Yeah.
But now, further down the road, I mean, you have more and more players coming out. You had your first big name player in the NBA say he wasn't going to be playing in Victor Oladipo. That's a big name right there on a playoff team.
I missed that one.
Yeah, he said he's not going to be playing. He's sitting out the rest of the year.
There were some big names that got diagnosed with COVID that have been saying they're probably going to sit out now, and Spencer Dinwiddie and DeAndre Jordan, just to name a couple.
Right. Well, Victor Oladipo did today announce that he is going to be sitting out.
Was he one of the players that got diagnosed? Or
I don't think so. I don't recall if he did or not, but whether or not he did, it's still been a while. So, I mean, I don't know if I can't recall if he did. I know Rudy Gobert did, and I think Donovan Mitchell did too.
Oh yeah, I'm saying because there was a new wave of players, and
right. And based on everything I'm hearing is every single round of testing, they expect positives. They expect players to test positive.
It'd be insane if you weren't expecting any positives when you're testing 300 plus people.
So, I mean, who knows what? And we mentioned on last week's episode, what's the threshold? And then I think they came out with 39 players tested positive in the last wave of testing, which, all right, so that's a little bit more than I was expecting, and that's a little bit closer to the threshold I was thinking, 50, 60 players test positive early on. It's all right, we got to pump the brakes. Well, we haven't even started this thing, and we've already got this many positives, so maybe I need to rethink my numbers a little bit, but I don't know if other players, especially big names, are going to follow in Oladipo's lead and say, I'm worried about playing. I think I'm going to sit out. I mean, you've obviously had some smaller name players, but he's really the most household big name player to really do it.
I'd agree.
You have some players in baseball that have really kind of are in a situation where they're mulling whether or not they're going to come back. I mean, even guys like Mike Trout has said, I'm worried about my family. I feel comfortable in the ballpark, but when I'm scared about bringing something home to my wife and to my kids. And Mike Trout, I don't know if he has any kids. I think he said he has a pregnant wife or something like that. Maybe that's Bryce Harper I'm thinking of, but both of them said that they were worried about bringing something home to their significant other and their families. So, and that's obviously something that they'd have to worry about, because I don't think baseball's doing the whole bubble thing. I think they're still living at home in their own ballparks and playing in their own ballpark. So there's more travel involved there. So I don't know if that's something that will increase the risk of exposure to the virus. I guess it's situational.
Yeah, but it would increase. I don't know if it increases exposure, but if someone's exposed, it increases the spread of the virus if you're traveling.
It definitely can. But I mean, if someone in
baseball has
Florida,
not discussed anything about a bubble, they're planning to play as normal.
They're playing in. They've got certain plans in place where they're keeping travel to a minimum, and basically the way their season's working out is they're playing their divisional opponents more than pretty much. I think they're playing like 40 of the 60 games are interdivision opponents, and then beyond that, it's like 20 interleague games or something. I can't get the exact wordage on it, but it's something along those lines to try to minimize travel and exposure around the league. But I mean, you look at the way the NBA is doing things, it being in the bubble, if one guy gets it, you very well possibly could have everyone get it at that point.
Yeah.
So while, yes, you're in theory keeping yourselves isolated from the outside world and the issues going on down in Florida, but if one bad seed, decides they're going to go out and go to the bar and they catch something, well, you may have a rampant problem inside that bubble in Disney World. So
it's the old saying, one bad apple ruins a bunch.
Exactly.
But speaking of bubbles, and this is something we discussed on our last podcast and discussed it as a fantasy, if anything, but lo and behold, according to ESPN's Jackie McMullen, this 8-team bubble may very well be a thing, and it may take place in Chicago. And I believe the only team against it, like we discussed last week, was the New York Knicks. But I don't know if they'll have a choice of the NBA mandates.
I mean, the players obviously will have a choice if they want to come
players
back to play.
will.
It just at that point, will the Knicks have enough players to field the team?
I mean, they already might not because most of their teams free agents anyways.
Right. Adrian Wojnarowski tweeted this out as well, so it's obviously legitimate NBA news. I'm very curious as to how this is going to look and what the impact on the season or lack thereof it's going to have. I mean,
we still have no word on if it's going to affect record. The only thing we know is that they're looking at the summer league style rotisserie format in terms of how it plays.
Which the way I look at this and the way I'm kind of interpreting this is it's going to essentially be Summer League 2.0 and probably replace the Summer League as a whole.
Then you have to have it after the draft if you want to do that.
Right. I mean,
because really the draw of Summer League is to see the rookies.
Yeah, but we're not going to have ourselves a normal offseason here. I don't know that we're going to have an actual Summer League with the rookies.
I don't think we will.
I don't think we will either. And so I feel like this is going to be a way to allow the teams and their players and their coaching staffs to get together and really have their own little training camp along with some game action. It'll be televised just like Summer League, but I really don't think it's going to be anything major. I think it's going to essentially just be a Summer League 2.0.
Something that I thought about, like you might be right in the Summer League 2.0 thing, because isn't the lottery supposed to be held in August?
I'm pretty sure.
So if they're looking to do this for September, then there's no way it's going to affect anyone's record.
Right.
Because it's going to be after the lottery.
Right. I again, even if they were to have this affect record, I would be pretty surprised, because then at that point
they'd have to move the lottery.
They would. One. Two, I don't know how you can justify playing these games when it would very obviously be nothing but a tank fest if you just added numbers to your record at that point. I mean, you can go, if you wanted to go your idea where for every game you win, every win is a loss to your record, and
every loss is a win to your record.
Yeah. So, you could go that route and make it a little bit better, or you can go the route of...
Or just a tournament.
Or it's a tournament where the winner
tournament for the number one pick.
Lottery. No, I wouldn't say the pick. I would do the lottery still. I would give it the best lottery odds with the tournament winner. But either way, you can't really have it be just a continuation of the season where everybody can tank at this point, because that would just be absolutely abysmal basketball, especially if you're televising this. It would not be...
players...
It'd be garbage.
The teams would hold out their players. It would just be a bunch of bench warmers playing for every team.
Right. If that. I mean, there'd be... Hell, you might see a team trot out with 6 guys and say, oh, we can't play.
Pistons star player would be Kyrie Thomas and Don Maker. Those would be our 2 studs in our starting lineup.
It would be absolutely terrible, if you ask me. It would be unwatchable, and I don't think it's something that the league could justify doing. The only reason I even see this happening is just because of the fact that I think it satisfies the regional sports networks.
But how much of a draw is it going to be if it's going to be purely scrimmages, like exhibition games? Like barely anyone watches preseason.
It fulfills time slots. Is what it is.
Fulfills time slots.
Yeah, it fills time slots and has one viewers more than none. So it's ad revenue, it's ad.
Yeah, the reason you want the time slots is ad revenue, but how much are advertising be willing to pay for or something that might be viewed by maybe 500,000 households?
I mean, again, that's more than zero, and obviously everybody wants money right now, and I think I think you might get a little bit more than 500,000 households in the regions watching these games, just because we're all starved for sports. How many people watch that
That could very well be a factor.
That golf tournament, that little golf match play between Ricky Fowler, Matt Wolff, Rory McIlroy, and Dustin Johnson. I mean, that was one of the most watched events in recent times that I can remember. I mean, a ton of people tuned in, and that's golf. Don't get me wrong, I love watching golf. I went to the Rack and Mortgage Classic this year. I was going to go this year, and hell, I played this morning. But either way, it's golf. Not a ton of people, I should say, watch it on TV, but people are watching right now. So I would imagine if your favorite basketball team, if you're a fan of one of these 8 teams, and if your favorite basketball team is playing, guess what? You're probably going to watch a few of these games. So I think it would be enough. Obviously, it wouldn't be as much as it would have been in a regular situation, but it's enough to where it might be worth it for the NBA to do, provided the product is watchable.
And then you bring me to the money question. And I basically am going to reiterate what I said in the last podcast, which is, do you want this? Is this something that if you saw, all right, Piston, because we are both diehard Pistons fans. If you saw, all right, Pistons are playing basketball in September. However, we're not going to see Blake Griffin. We're not going to see Christian Wood.
The roster was a mess by the end. Don't worry about it.
That's bad. Wow.
The roster was a mess by the end.
We're not going to see Derrick Rose. Like, you're not going to see the studs, if you can call them studs. Is this something you tune in for?
I'll be honest with you. I don't love watching Summer League or preseason. I think they're both a waste of my time.
I watch Summer League to see the rooks, and I barely watch preseason at all.
Yeah, I really don't even watch for that. I mean, I'll catch a game if I'm at a bar or if I'm really bored and there's nothing else on, which is entirely possible. But for the most part, I really don't tune in that much. I check stats, I check highlights and stuff like that, but that's about it. I don't glue to myself to the TV, but I probably will watch a game or two. I won't lie. I miss basketball. I miss sports,
just out of the starvation.
Right. Right. However, to be 100% honest with you, I don't care. In all honesty, I don't care, and it's not that I don't want basketball to come back. It's not that I don't want sports to come back.
I care about the playoff tournament. I'll be watching.
Oh, absolutely. I'll be watching that for sure. But for these bottom 8 teams, I really don't care. I don't see why it would be worth it. Sure, if they made it a tournament and top team gets number 1 lottery odds, sure, why not? That might be interesting. But otherwise, I really don't give a damn. It's bad basketball teams, and it's there's obviously far more important and more impactful things in the world going on right now that basketball and sports in particular really just don't seem as big anymore. They were a big part of my life, but I'm at a point where there's other things I have to worry about on a daily basis. I obviously still love my sports and I'm starving for them, but it just doesn't seem as big as it used to be, and I guess a lot of it's having been put in perspective with everything going on. And I would much rather just not play basketball the rest of this year to ensure that we have a basketball season next year. I don't want this whatever 20 games or 10 games, whatever it is, situation to impact whether or not we have a season next year. That would suck. I don't want this to drag on longer than it has to. So frankly, if doing this it could potentially impact next season, I'd say forget it. It's
well, it already
not
is, because season won't start till December, and I'm still not clear if it's going to be a shortened season or if they're playing a full.
They are pushing next season back, which I think they are going to do either way, just because of the projection models with this whole COVID thing and when it's supposedly supposed to come back full force, I should say. I mean, it obviously hasn't really ever left, but come back full force is around the fall. So they obviously want to push back the NBA season a little bit to try to avoid that some. But
and that's why the NFL season is so much in jeopardy.
Right. But no, I mean, I'm curious to hear your opinion because frankly, I really I don't care. Obviously, I miss sports, but I don't want it to impact next year.
It's the same. It's the same as you. It's the fact that all right, it's a novelty of having sports back, so it's going to be the curiosity of that, and just me being starved for sports. All right, I want to consume some basketball on my TV, so I'll be watching the first couple games just to oh look, it's the Pistons again, and then I'll probably get bored of it because. And even now that I think about it, just think as I'm talking, if we're having this playoff bubble happening in July, how starved for basketball am I going to be in September?
Right.
So it may just be the novelty of, I get to watch the Pistons play for a few games and maybe watch a couple of those and realize no one important's playing from the team and then phase off of it, I guess.
I'll also be completely honest with you. If it's, with the empty gyms, obviously you're going to be playing in venues where
did you see those pictures that where they're setting up in Orlando? Oh my gosh. It looks like they're setting up in a hotel ballroom or something.
Interesting. But with these empty gyms, I'm very curious what the energy and the watchability levels are going to be, because obviously fans, you don't think how much of a role fans play in how watchable it is on TV, but they really kind of do. It's excitement, it's energy, it pumps up the players, which pumps up the the level of play, and it makes it just a different environment, a different game to be able to watch on TV. And I look at something like a summer league or a training camp, and some of that basketball I could honestly take a nap through. And it has nothing to do with it's bad basketball or anything like that. Sometimes it is, but it's just there's not as much energy. It's very low energy. It's very and I'm hoping that isn't something that'll impact the playoff bubble, but it very well could. And it's something that I'm a little bit concerned about. So I'm wondering if I'm even going to find myself wanting to change the channel as I'm watching some of these games. And I hope I don't, because again, I love basketball, but if it's just not exciting, I mean, what else am I going to do? I'm not going to force myself to watch something I'm not enjoying.
I agree 100%. And you just reminded me, and this is just kind of a little bit of a tangent here on what we were talking about, but did you see De'Aaron Fox's comments?
Nope.
So this ties exactly into like not wanting to watch something that is not going to be good basketball. He basically was praising Sacramento's fans on how like every time they play, even though they're not quite a playoff team, they're still playing to like a packed house. But then when he goes to somewhere like Detroit, the stands are almost empty.
Ouch.
He took a little slight dig at the Detroit fans.
Ouch.
But like, and I was just like reading that. I'm like, can you like, and it goes back to what we're talking about with watching it on TV, like watching on TV with this bubble. Can you really blame fans they don't tune in to what's not going to be a good product? And I'd say no, I don't blame Pitt, even though I would love to see Little Caesars Arena rocking. I don't blame Pistons fans for not being there when the team is terrible. Just like I won't blame NBA fans if they don't want to tune in to this 8-game non-playoff team bubble.
I mean, I'm not one to just tell someone they're a bad fan. I'm not.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not my place, and I really don't think there's. If you're a fan, you're a fan. I don't think there's good fans and bad fans. So to that level, I think there's diehards and then there's just fans. And obviously you have your bandwagon fans, but can I blame someone for, like, let me ask you this. If you knew a movie was bad going into it and it was not going to be enjoyable to watch, would you go pay to watch it?
No, we've seen this. No.
Even if it was your favorite
Unless it is
studio.
laughably bad. Then
that's a different story. But even if it was your favorite studio, like let's say Martin Scorsese puts out a movie and it's known that it is just a bad movie, which I know that'll never happen because Scorsese.
You put me in a corner here because I think Scorsese's might be the one director where I'm going to go watch the movie regardless.
Even if you know that this movie is absolutely terrible. Like, it is a bad movie, like his worst movie ever made.
You bring up a good point because Scorsese did put out, like, his first couple movies were not that strong that he put out back in, like, the late 60s, like Boxcar Bertha, for example. And I've always told myself I want to check out, like, his whole filmography, but that's, like, the one movie that I don't find I don't see myself ever want to visit and watch because I'm like, why am I going to waste my time watching it if I know it's not going to be a good movie?
So if, just like that analogy there, if it's a bad movie, it doesn't matter who the director is or who the studio is. If you know it's bad, are you going to go pay to watch it? Well, the same is true for sports. If you know the product is bad, how do you justify going to pay a ton of money, a premium, because it ain't cheap to go to LCA? How can you justify telling somebody that they're a bad fan for doing that? For not going, and I don't blame them one bit. I mean, you don't want to watch them because they're bad. I mean, would you watch would you watch a knowingly bad movie? Would you pay to watch that? The answer is probably no. So, with that being said, I can't blame Pistons fans for not wanting to show up, and the same was true for the Tigers. I can't blame fans for not wanting to go to those games. I don't care how cheap it is, even if it is the price of an actual movie ticket to go watch them play. I don't blame them for not wanting to go. Yeah. It is what it is. Until they give us good product out there, if it's a good product, the stands will be packed and they'll be rocking. And I can't wait for that to happen again because I know it's going to. But we got to get there.
And a really good analogy just popped in my head. It reminds me of, I don't know if you remember that movie that came out, might have been 2 years ago now, Downsizing. It was Matt Damon and then Alexander Payne, the guy who directed Sideways. It's like one of my Sideways is one of my favorite comedies all time. And then Matt Damon is one of my favorite actors. I'm like, oh, those two doing a movie together? That director, I'm definitely going to watch. It was one of my most anticipated movies. And then it got absolutely trashed when it came out. Still haven't seen it to this day. Still have not seen it.
Exactly my point. And you know what? You could probably watch it free right now, and you still choose not to.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's my point.
All right, let's move on to the Rocket Mortgage Classic. Nick, you want to kick this one off?
Well, it's not so much. I didn't really want to get into the Rocket Mortgage Classic, so to speak. We have.
Well, you can use it as a jumping off point.
Right. It was more of we've seen the Rocket Mortgage Classic here now for 2 years. And it was an event that was here in Detroit. Everybody was very much anticipating and was very excited for. My question is, though, with this being an event that seemingly is something that's going to come back year after year after year, is this a sign that Detroit is ready? And obviously it's been a success. It was a success last year, and it seems to be a success this year. Is this an event that is a springboard, a launching platform for the city of Detroit to be able to host other big-time sporting events? And
I don't what are there fans allowed this year?
No fans, nothing. Okay. Last year there was, obviously, I was there. But this year, no fans, it's just your crew. But it still shows that Detroit can handle this level of of an event. And I mean, it's a $7.5 million prize purse. It ain't a small game tournament at this point. It was one of the select few tournaments chosen by the PGA to still play this year. So obviously it's got some cachet to it. It's got some rapport, and players want to play. You have some names at it. I mean, you got Webb Simpson, who I think actually is one of the leaders going in after the second round. Bubba Watson's there. Patrick Reed's there. Bryson DeChambeau, the dude who hits the ball a mile. I mean, you have some pretty solid names at this tournament.
Dude, I saw a clip of him hitting. Oh my gosh!
What, that 376-yard drive?
And it was like 160 miles per hour in the
106. I think it was like 168 mile an hour ball speed or something like that. It was something ridiculous. He carried it 343 yards. It was ridiculous. The dude has so much violence in his swing. I'm scared. I every single time the guy swings a driver, I think he's gonna drop to his knees and blow out his back and his knee at the same time. I know the whole, like, he turns his foot out, his front foot, so it takes the pressure off. But how long until that foot ends up getting stuck and it locks in place, and then his back gives out? I'm curious to see how long he's able to keep that swing the way it is. But I mean, he's even in the hunt. I mean, he's only 3 back of the leaderboard right now. So at least I believe from what I'm seeing.
Who's competing this year? Because this is kind of going to factor my answer too. But
well, what do you mean? Like
who are the biggest names competing?
Well, Ricky Fowler, Bryson DeChambeau. You've got Harold Varner, I believe, is up there. Chris Kirk is 12 under. He and Webb Simpson are tied for 12 under. Matt Wolf, the guy who played with Ricky Fowler, Roy McIlroy, and Dustin Johnson's there. He's only 1 shot back. DeChambeau's 1 shot back.
So the actual event is because I know it's a PGA event, but the actual event is a respected event among golfers.
Absolutely. Okay. There's some names here. I mean, you've got Webb Simpson, Matt Wolf, Bryson DeChambeau, Ricky Fowler, Ryan Stewart, who's a local guy. I believe he went to OU. He's a solid name. Harold Varner, Steve Stricker, Brennan Todd. I mean, there's tons of names at this. Bubba Watson, I mentioned. Keegan Bradley's there. There's absolute names at this tournament. Tony Finau's another big name that's up near the top of the world rankings. There's names at this tournament. It's respected. It's well known. People like to come here and play. And last year, obviously, you had the winner be a guy who was a sub, basically. He was a ringer that qualified late and because of someone dropped out, he got to play and he ended up winning the whole damn thing. And I believe he finished like a score of like 25 under. Well, after 2 rounds, the leaders are 12 under, so I don't know if we're quite going to get that kind of score, and that's what was expected. I mean, they made this golf course a little tougher, a little longer. The rough is longer, the fairways might be a little narrower, so they made it tougher this year. Obviously, the first year of tournaments, they want to always encourage scoring, but anyways, does this give you hope that Detroit could possibly get looked at as a landing spot for some of these other events? Maybe an All-Star game, maybe a Super Bowl, maybe a draft even. Is this something that we could look at?
And because if you look, first of all, from what I heard, I don't know, I don't have the exact numbers that I've been looking for. I can't really find them. But from what I heard, the attendance was great last year in 2019.
Oh, fantastic. It was sold out every day.
And
every
also,
single day.
What I heard was they did a good job of having other things to do around there for fans in attendance. So the feedback from fans of the 2019 Rocket Mortgage Classic was positive. And I remember hearing some issues about the course conditions and stuff like that, but as long as they did a better job with the course conditions this year, but that would help keep the Rocket Mortgage Classic in Detroit. And I think what they would need is just to keep showing that as the event grows in popularity, which I mean, it proved was pretty popular in 2019. But basically what I'm trying to get at is what it comes down to is, can they prove that they can handle the fan capacity, the travel influx in terms of hotels? And
I mean, we know Detroit's got tons of hotels.
Yeah, we know they do.
Class ones.
So I didn't hear any negatives coming out of it from 2019. So it seems like they handled it pretty well. So, and I think I don't think it's going to be like, all right, they handled the Rocket Mortgage Classic, give them the NBA All-Star Game, give them the Super Bowl again. But it's a positive check mark in the book, is how I view it. And it's one more thing that Detroit can bring to the table, say, hey, we were able to do this. We can take the next step and handle this again. You know, they did. We hosted the Super Bowl in 2006, was it, right?
I can't remember if it was 06 or 04. I think it was 06. But, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be something that's going to just immediately hand us all these events.
It was 05.
05? Okay, so we're right in the middle. I don't think it's going to be something that we're just, they can handle this, the Rocket Mortgage Classic, so we're just going to give them all the events in the world. I don't think it's going to be something like that. But going back to the course conditions, you know, I remember watching it in the first round last year and saying, I don't know, maybe the course doesn't look all that impressive on TV. And then I went. My God, that course is in immaculate condition, and actually a lot of players were saying that the course is absolutely in pristine shape and it looks amazing.
Okay.
And I've heard nothing but the same this year as well. So, but you know, I am kind of hoping that this is a situation where maybe some of these other sporting leagues can look at and say, hey, maybe we should throw an All-Star Game in Detroit, or
that's one thing I've learned for my whole life is an NBA All-Star Game in Detroit.
Maybe even, I mean, the baseball All-Star Game's been here. MLB All-Star Game's been here, and it was great.
I think that was 2007, right?
I think it was earlier than that. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But and that event went well, and there was a lot. You know, obviously the city can handle these things, and honestly, I think the city's more equipped to handle these big events than it was back in the early 2000s.
I agree.
The city's much improved downtown.
No, that was 2005 also. Wow, okay.
Yeah, and it's just a place to hang out down there now. You have a lot of people that like to go down there, so I don't see why it wouldn't be a place where you can have some of these events. So
I think if you actually properly develop District Detroit, that'll be another draw, another positive check mark in the book.
Yeah, that's a whole another conversation for another day. But I definitely think it's something that could be looked forward to. And honestly, I bet you the NBA and maybe even the NHL are looking at the development of District Detroit and whether or not that's one even going to happen, and two, when it is complete, if it ever gets complete, maybe they will throw an All-Star Game here if it's completed in a timely fashion.
Well, we know the NBA is looking at it because they like to focus on the new arenas for All-Star Games. And
a lot of these leagues do. They want to showcase the newest and greatest. And so LCA, as long as they get this complete, and so it's not a construction site around LCA in a timely fashion, maybe we will get an All-Star Game in one of our leagues here. So one can only hope.
One can only hope I can afford to go when it happens.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. I'll
take All-Star Saturday night. I'll be happy with that. I'll take All-Star Saturday night.
I'll go watch a dunk contest. Hell yeah. Watch some dudes.
Give me one of those,
fly.
One of those little 10 brochures I can hold up.
I'll watch some dudes fly. Do you have anything else to add on? I mean, I know you brought up another topic before.
We do have one more thing. We got to get to some movie talk. And again, this is right down the same line as what we were talking about with basketball. And basically what we're seeing, and this stems from the fact that Broadway announced this past week that they were not going to be doing any more shows, like not doing any shows at all this year anymore. It's just they're pushing everything back to 2021 now. And already studios had July release dates set, and now they're pushing it. Like they already had pushed dates back to July, like for example, Tenet didn't want to move, but there were movies being pushed back to July. Tenet eventually caved and moved, but movies that were pushed back to July are now getting pushed back even further. And now we're getting closer to the fall where projections hint at a second wave. And the fact that already we're seeing an influx of cases. If you're a movie studio, are you comfortable releasing a movie at all this year at any point? Because of the fact that, one, if movies were to be reopened, if theaters were to be reopened, they'd be reopening at minimal capacity, 50% tops. And that's if it's a sold out crowd, that's 50%. And on top of that, the volatility of the situation as a whole, you don't know when they can close right back down again. Is it realistic that we could say that we may not see any new movies released in theaters in 2020.
I not only say it's realistic to say that, I say it's almost a definite at this point, especially a blockbuster film that is a massive draw. You know, we already saw Fast and Furious 9 get pushed back to next year. And I think you're going to see more and more of these big-time films and big-time studios push these movies back. And frankly, I think that's the responsible decision on all levels. I think for public health reasons, it's a responsible decision to do that. I think for fiscal reasons, it's the responsible decision. If someone were to tell me right now, definitively, that if we pushed all new movies, all sporting events, everything back to 2021, and it meant, and we had to wear a mask until then, and call it a political statement all you want, I don't care. If we had to push everything back until 2021, but when 2021 came around and we started getting all these things, we could go back to normal. Sign me right up. I'll be the first in line to sign that deal. And I'll say, if I can, wait another 5-6 months for the end of this year to get everything back to normal next year and move on with my life, I'd do it.
Yeah, at least we set the certainty to what we're doing, because right now, feels like we're going in circles.
Obviously, that's not a realistic deal. Yeah. We can't just say, "Oh, it's going to disappear," because it's not. That's just a reality of the situation. But in my opinion, honestly, I really don't think we're seeing a big time movie this year. I think if theaters reopen in some areas, because you got to really look at what the individual states are doing, and Michigan is a good example. I mean, we looked like we were on track to begin opening, and the next step for us was to open our theaters and open our small event centers and things, and have a little bit more of a capacity in our buildings. And then we had to stop. We had to kind of pump the brakes a little bit. We got a little too excited. And we started seeing a jump in cases again. So we had to kind of pump the brakes a little bit and maybe even move backwards. And we did move backwards. I mean, the governor closed down bars. If your primary source of revenue is alcohol, if alcohol is 70% of your revenue, guess what? You're closed right now. Unless you're in Traverse City or the UP. But we had to go backwards. And that's going to be a lot of the reality of the situation. Is there's going to have to be that hump is going to be hard for us to get over. There's that threshold that's going to be tough, and it is a little concerning and a little scary, obviously, for business owners. And I really do feel for them. But it is what it is at this point. It's a reality of life, and it's a tough situation, and we have to kind of skirt that real fine line of public safety as well as economical safety, I guess we'll call it, economical responsibility here. And it's a tough line, but I think movie studios are going to look at states like Michigan and California and New York and say, look, they're not ready to open, so why would we? Why would we push our movies and take these big hits on these movies unless they find another way to release them? Maybe they find a way to charge a fee online and buy a ticket to watch a virtual showing, not like a streamed showing of a new movie. Maybe they do something along those lines.
Which they've been doing for smaller films.
Right. And honestly, I may be interested in watching something like that. At this point, to see a new movie, something I haven't already watched that I'm anticipating and excited for, I'd probably pay, a $5 to go to download a movie that I was hoping to see.
Well, what they're charging right now is $20.
Oh, okay, that's a lot. that's a little steep. I might pay.
It's a movie ticket for you and your girlfriend. That's what it is.
Yeah, I might pay 10. Depends on the movie, but
we'll have a stream party.
Yeah, there we go.
Everyone pitches in like we're doing a fight or something.
But I mean, maybe we get something along those lines. Obviously, they're not going to want to do that with their big time movies. It's just not worth it to them. So no, I really don't think we're seeing a big time movie in theaters this year. I think everything's going to get pushed back to next year for sure.
Yeah, and I agree, and I honestly hope it happens, because even if we do get movies released, I don't know how comfortable I'd be going. And even if I work, and even if I did go, how comfortable would I? Do I really want to sit and wear a mask for 2 hours straight?
God.
I can wear a mask to a grocery store. I'm fine.
I wear a mask all day at work, but still.
I really want to just sit there and I want to eat popcorn.
Are they okay? I'm actually kind of curious how that's gonna work, because if you have popcorn and a drink, you obviously can't be wearing a mask.
Exactly.
So once you get to your seat, do you take it off?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe you just pull it down and put the popcorn in your mouth, pull it back up.
Now, let me ask you this, and here's something I've kind of thought about. If all of this situation meant that drive-in theaters were going to make a surge comeback and become like a big thing again and not go away, is that something you'd be down for?
See, I've never been to a drive-in, so it's something I've always wanted to do anyways. So yeah, I'd be down. Now, if I go to my first drive-in feature and I realize that I wasn't a big fan of the experience, maybe I won't go after that. But like, I would definitely at least try it one time.
Fair. I'd absolutely try it one time, and maybe I'll even give it a second try.
I mean, did you see Burt Kreischer's doing a drive-in tour?
I did not, but I kind of...
Yeah, he's been doing a tour just drive-in theaters.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I kind of want to see this.
and like instead of laughing, like they honk.
Oh, that's awesome. Did he encourage this?
I don't know. I don't know if he encouraged honking.
Honestly, God, if he didn't, and like the first show he did, and that's just what happened, like just everybody got on the same wavelength and just started honking. If I was Burt Kreischer there, I don't know that I'd be able to stop laughing for 10 minutes.
I don't know if I could continue the show. Like, I'd be anticipating every joke and be like bracing for all the honks.
Oh man, I would honestly God just start dying. I don't know what I'd do.
Oh man.
Oh, that's amazing.
But yeah, so that's a thing. But but the other thing this makes me think of is how insane is the 2021 release calendar going to be?
I'll tell you right now, I'll be honest with you. I think 2021 release calendar will be fantastic, but I think you're going to see a lot of these movies end up getting pushed back to 2022, and they'll spread it out a little bit, especially when you've got movies that are expected to release in 2021 from the same studio as a movie that was releasing something in 2020. They'll probably take that 2021 film, push it back another year.
Yeah, they don't want to compete against themselves.
Right. So I think you're going to see it end up balancing out to where 2021's release calendar is going to end up looking like what we thought 2020's release calendar is going to look like, with a few other movies kind of thrown in there. So
2020 and how because I know the Academy Awards got pushed back like 3 months or something like that.
Right.
I don't think that's going to make much of it. Like, they're going to have to just cancel it for this year.
I think the Academy Awards are going to be canceled.
They're going to have like 10 movies to choose from.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't see one. Even if they wanted to do it, I don't see how they would have enough material to go off of. You would have quite possibly the worst Best Picture ever this year. It wouldn't be fair. You'd have to the thing is you would have to eternally have an asterisk next to the winners of
any winners. Yeah,
exactly, next to the winners of any of these awards, because it wasn't a real movie year, and I don't know how you could cheapen an Oscar that much by doing that. It just doesn't make sense for the Oscars at all.
That's why I remember when I read that, I laughed. I'm like, we pushing a couple months? Like, what's that going to do?
What's going to get released in 3 months when we're all inside our homes?
Oh, man. Anyway, that's all I have for movie news. I thought that was a little interesting thing to touch on.
Oh, definitely. I mean, obviously, I want to go back to the movies. Everybody who has watched our live show...
Other than sports, that's what I miss most.
Right. Everybody who's watched our live show or kind of followed us over the years knows that we are big time into movies. We love movies. We've written reviews. We've done expose articles, and we've done a lot with movies, and we've done live reviews, and we're really into the movie scene. And we've been to press screenings for movies. So for us not to have movies and then not to have sports on top of that, I'll be honest with you, for a while, I didn't know what to do with my life. I really didn't know what to do with my life. It became a very sad, dark, and boring time for me. I was like, okay.
I'll be honest, if I didn't have school to occupy myself with, I'd probably have my head in the toilet. That's probably what I would do.
Why, from drinking too much? I mean, shit. I'd be lying if I said I didn't, drink to pass the time at least once or twice during all of this. But obviously, I very desperately want movies to come back, and I know you do too. I know we've talked about it just between ourselves, how badly we want movies to come back, and to be able to go see a movie with friends or family or girlfriends, whatever. But right now, it wouldn't make sense. It just doesn't feel like the right time to do that. And if they were to come back, like you mentioned, I don't know that I'd be comfortable going to watch a movie. I mean, the movie theater is a place where it's an enclosed space. People are laughing and coughing and sneezing, and there's a lot of bodily sounds inside of a movie theater that I don't know that I want the guy next to me to be the one doing it. So I don't know that I'd be comfortable going back to a movie just because of that. So and at that point, I'd feel like I'm missing out. So it would suck. I don't want movies to come back for that reason. Just kind of like what you said. I hope things get pushed back until next year.
It's just it adds clarity to the situation, really. And it makes me more comfortable that, like, all right, I think we're doing the most we can to try to curb this as soon as possible.
Right. And you bring up a good point. It does provide clarity. And it also gives us a goal to go for. It gives us a goal to go for. It gives us something to strive to get to, and that's kind of what we need. Is we're in a period of uncertainty and a lot of confusion, and do this, no do that, with no goal in mind here. So it'd be something that would give us a goal to reach for and what we need to do, the path to get there, and hopefully we'd be able to. So, but I agree. I do think that we need to kind of pump the brakes on, bringing back some of the things that we've been missing so much.
Agreed.
So, but anyways, anything else, Dad?
No, that's everything I got, man.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrew, for joining me today. Thank you guys for listening as usual. Thank you to Detroit Sports Podcast. Different episode, a little bit different, a lot more of a, broad-based spectrum kind of thing. But thank you guys again for listening.
And as always, you can't really talk sports without having coronavirus talk factored into it.
Right. Especially right now when when the only news that comes out of these leagues is people either sitting out, saying they won't play, or hey, we have 75,000 new cases. We have 75 new cases in the NBA. I actually think the number's like 39, but still. But thank you guys again for listening. We hope you guys are staying safe and, staying sane out there. Buckle down a little bit longer. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll make it. But hit us up on Twitter at Real Fan Report. Thank you guys again for listening. And we'll catch you guys next week. This has been the Fan Reporters. Bye, fans.
For fans.
Have a good one, guys. Peace out and happy 4th of July. Enjoy your weekend.
Happy 4th. Peace.